Hello everyone! Today is the day when you start drawing real backgrounds, and I will show you how using this drawing I made of a desert landscape. Before we get started, please leave a like and subscribe. Let's go! So the first step I do with any drawing I make is the sketching phase. It doesn't have to be nearly as detailed as the one I'm making, but it just has to give you the basic ideas of where everything needs to be. Next, I color in all the large shapes with one flat color for each thing. For the sky, I used a gradient that gets lighter towards the bottom. I do end up changing some of the colors in the sky later, but that will come soon. Now, when drawing landscapes, one of the most important things is perspective. This means you need to have a clear foreground, middle ground, and background. There are a few ways of doing this, like lowering the contrast as you get further back or adding less detail. For this drawing, I darkened the colors and made the background a bit more blue, which also gives that effect. And now it's time for shading. You always need to find where your light source is coming from before you start shading. For me, this was the left side, so I added some yellow highlights to the left side of all the objects. You have to keep in mind that the more you blend, the smoother the edge will appear. Just like how a ball will have really smooth shading, while a cube would be more sharp. Next, I shaded the cactus, which I used the same method for. The cactus was fairly round, so I blended most of it out. I actually went over some of the desert to make the colors a bit more defined. So I wanted this drawing to have a clear focal point, which is why I shaped these rocks to form a kind of spiral that points towards the tree I'm about to make. You might have noticed that I always start coloring with one solid color before adding the shadow and highlight tones. Then, as you know, I blend out the curved edges, which is most of this trunk. You can obviously tell that the tree looks pretty funky because I wanted it to stand out and bring attention to it. For the leaves, I again start with the midtones and add darker colors towards the bottom. However, with the trees, I overlaid some of these light and dark colors to give the illusion of individual leaves without having to draw them all. I then added a really bright highlight just to make it pop a bit more. After that, I added its shadow and even some leaves falling off of it. I gave these a bit of motion blur, then moved on. So I thought that the rocks were feeling just a bit bland, so I fixed it by giving it a bit more contrast. I gave it much darker shadows and much brighter highlights, but didn't blend them as much. Then I went back to the cactus flowers and gave them more depth, but I ended up just blurring it in the end. I did this because I imagined it very close up, meaning it would not be in focus. Yes, now it's time for the clouds. If you didn't notice, I actually made the clouds point towards the tree. This is a clever idea to use to draw people's eyes towards the focal point. I made the clouds by using a fairly large brush to get a very rough shape of the cloud before using my eraser to refine it. I actually made a short on how to draw different kinds of clouds, so you can go check that out after this video. Anyways, I blended out the cloud slightly and gave it a small motion blur. So I noticed that the highlights on the rocks were pretty strong, so I thought that the light source needed to match that. So I made the kind of impulsive decision to add a really bright sun just behind the rocks. I also added even more highlights to the background to match that. Like I said before, I changed the sky to have a warmer hue because of the sun. Next, I added some birds just to give the scene a bit more motion and also added a bush near the bottom. When drawing small objects like this, it's better not to add too much detail. So try not to zoom in because the viewers will be seeing this drawing as a whole and not zooming in on every detail. After that, I added a cow skull and more plants on the side. Again, try not to add too much detail to these. Okay, at this point I was almost done with the drawing and just needed to add some finishing touches like this trail of footsteps I added leading towards the tree. And here's the finished product. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe. See ya.